Survivor's guilt. Did you get that?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I was kind of like I was kind of in between of like not understanding what happened
Mm,
and and trying to like realize like, am I alive because of these surgeons, or am I alive because my wife and like her mom in Africa had like 1,000 people praying for me? Like, is there a reason like I'm alive right now?
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamis, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Hello and welcome to episode 209 of the Recovery After Stroke podcast. If you are a stroke survivor with a story to share about your experience with stroke and you've been thinking about reaching out to be a guest on the show, but were waiting for the right time to reach out, well, this is it. If you go to recoveryafterstroke.com/contact, you'll find a form that you can fill out to apply to be a guest on the show. As soon as I receive it, I will respond with more details on how you can choose a time that works for you for us to meet over Zoom. Now, my guest today is Theo Koutalos, an author of the book Loshi and The Battle of the Godstones, and a two-time stroke survivor who experienced his health scares 7 years apart, one at age 38 and one at age 45. Theo Koutalos,
Yeah,
welcome
fellow
to the
Greek.
fellow Greek, mate. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
How long has the family been in Canada, and when did they immigrate to Greece, to Canada?
So, my mom and dad roughly came around the early 50s. My dad fought in the Greek Civil War
Wow.
right after Germany left. The Civil War broke out, and he ended up fighting. And then after the war was finished, my dad moved to Canada, and my mom, I believe she came in 56, and they met at church. They met at a Greek church
The perfect place to meet back then.
back then. That's how they met.
Fantastic. And which part
Yeah.
of Greece are they from?
So my mom's from Rhodos, and my dad is from Tyrannos. So like pretty much close to the Mount Olympia.
Ah,
He was
yeah,
from the villages out there.
yeah. Awesome, man.
Mhm.
Awesome. Have you been back?
You know what? We went in like the late 80s, I believe, and it was very like very village still. So and I think it's very different now. I think everything's paved and there's a lot of stores and a lot of tourists. When we went, there wasn't very much tourism there. Now I don't think you can go anywhere without being bombarded by tourism. So
Yeah. Theo, you got to get there, go back to
I'm done.
Greece
Yeah.
and enjoy it, man, because I go back to Greece as often as I can, and which is not that often, but
Yeah.
at one point we were going back every 2 years for about 6 or 7 years, and
Oh, beautiful.
it was so much fun. It was so much fun. We had an amazing time, and you get to see where the family is from. My wife's family is also from Greece, so we had a really amazing kind of experience learning about our ancestors and getting a better feel
Mm,
for all of the stuff that they went through, they put up with,
oh,
they had to do. It's very different to having the experience with my parents when they're in Australia,
yeah.
and then going back there with them and then seeing them interact in their old villages with
Yeah.
the people that are still there, so it
Yeah.
was such an awesome experience. And then of course we did the touristy things, and then we sat on a beach for as long as we could, and Greece is full of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
But tell me a little bit about you, man, and what happened to you.
So, I have, I think I think before the 2015 stroke I was battling with the blood pressure for about 4 years. And I think my doctor, I was going to what we call here a family practice. So what it is my doctor is a doctor who trains students to become GPs, general practitioners. So every time I would go to the family practice, I would have a different doctor. And I think they had a hard time keeping track of my blood pressure. And I was not really taking it as seriously as I should have. Because they tell you the same thing. I feel like everybody kind of hears the same thing. Don't eat too much salt. You know, don't be too stressed out. You know, try to exercise and I was on I don't know if you guys have the same meds in the UK or Australia, but we were using Ramcril, and that's what they had for me, and it wasn't really doing anything for me. So I think the blood pressure thing, being as old as I was and not really taking it in a mature way, it got me. I got bit like you would get bit by a shark or something. I just got nipped from it.
Yeah. 38 years old at the time.
Yeah.
And what was the onset like? Firstly, did you have any feelings that you had high blood pressure? Was there anything what
Not
happened in
at
your
all.
body that suggested it?
Nothing. It was literally like out of nowhere, where like I woke up in the morning, I went to the bathroom, and it just happened like that. My whole left side just went dead. And I almost felt like I had like a glass box over my head. It was very muffled, like that sound. If you were to cover your ears, that's what everything sounded like, even my own voice. So I remember banging on the bathroom door and I couldn't talk. And I was just like kind of yelling. And my wife jumped out of bed, saw me, and she was in utter shock. And she called 911 right away. But I didn't know what a carotid arterial dissection was. I had no idea.
You didn't know what a carotid artery was. You didn't know anything.
I had no
about
idea.
That stuff.
And I really didn't think anything like that would have ever happened. It was really scary.
Yeah.
You know.
So you're in the bathroom in the middle of doing your business?
Yeah. Yeah, like in the middle of urinating, and it just happened like that.
And then were you able to get out of the bathroom? Is it most of the bathrooms I imagine are small?
I pretty much, so actually, so like the day before, I had what they call an ischemic attack. So I was on my computer and my left arm just went dead. I went to move my mouse on the computer and I couldn't. And my brain was saying like, move the mouse. And then I picked up my hand and it just went dead. And I'm like, what? So I ended up getting up, falling. And then about, I would say 15 minutes, everything kind of came back. And I got up, I took a shower, and I went to the family clinic. And the doctor was just like, yeah, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. So then the next day, I woke up in the morning and I had my stroke. And I was able to, my wife helped me get to the bed, put on clothes, and the ambulance was here. I live actually very close to a hospital, so I was very lucky. They got me to the hospital right away. And they put IVs in me. They brought my blood pressure down. And it was a 2-week experience of fragment. It's a blood clot thinner.
Yep.
I had to do that for 2 weeks. And just a lot of doctor's appointments. And it was interesting. It was an interesting experience.
Did your family lose their shit like my family?
Oh yeah. My mom was freaking out. She's Greek. And she was like, "Oh my God, my son, my son. What are we gonna do with my son?" And my sister was a little bit nervous and scared, and yeah, it was my brother-in-law was like crying. He's like, "What's going on?" So it was kind of scary. It was kind of scary.
Yeah.
Greek mothers, man, they you know, they take things very hard.
They take things to the next level of
It's the next
seriousness.
level.
My
Oh
biggest
yeah.
job when I was unwell was trying to keep my family calm, trying to keep them all calm.
Yeah.
I'll
It's
tell you,
hard.
it's not only is it hard, it's impossible. So I was in hospital, the first bleed, and I'm in there for 7 days, and the family's coming to visit me, and I'm supposed to be in my bed, lying down and doing all the tests and all that stuff, which I am. And then this one particular day, and I'm not supposed to be walking anywhere or getting out of the ward.
Yeah.
And this one particular day, my mum comes up to the ward, and I said to her, "Where's Dad?" And she said, "Well," I said, "Man, what do you mean, well, where is he?" "Well, he's downstairs." "What's he doing downstairs?" "Well, he collapsed at home as we were leaving to come to see you, and the ambulance picked him up and brought him here." and, and I'm
Mm.
like, what are you talking about? Where's my dad? And she goes, "I think he forgot to take his medication, or he took it on an empty stomach. He did something wrong in the morning."
Mm.
And my dad is 6 foot and beyond, and he's big.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
he is massive, right? Wide
Yeah.
shouldered, like overweight a little bit. There was no picking him up. So when he hits the ground, like he hits the ground hard. So
Mhm.
the ambulance picked him up. They took him to emergency, and then he was in emergency. And I go downstairs to visit my dad in emergency in the same hospital that I'm at, when
Oh
he
my
was supposed to be there to come and visit me, right? So
God, weird.
that was my that was my dad. Now, I had another bleed 6 weeks later, and then I had another one in 2014. So
Yeah.
move forward in almost 3 years at brain surgery. I'm in recovery in brain surgery, and a couple of days later, they're pushing me around in the wheelchair because I can't walk. And I'm at lunch in the cafe of the emergency ward of the hospital, and my wife starts to go grey, and she's kind of like passing out. And I'm like,
Oh, no.
"Are you all right? What's wrong with you?" We're trying to get her roused up and get her going and everything, and we can't.
Oh my goodness.
So we take her to emergency. There's some people with me, I think. We took her to emergency. They got her checked out, and then they've taken her into a bed, and they've connected her up to all the monitors and everything. So here's me now. I'm downstairs with a scar on my head, fresh out
Oh.
of surgery, sitting next to my wife in the hospital bed.
Oh my
She's
God.
connected to all the machines, and my surgeon, one of the guys that was on the team of my surgery, he walks past, and then he stops and he does a double take, and he looks, and he goes, "What are you two doing here?" I said to him, "I don't know. Something's wrong with my wife. Can you
Oh,
guys, can you
jeez.
do me a favor and like look into it for me or something?" So
That's
anyway,
so weird.
that's what we went through amongst all the other shit. So I get what you're saying about dramatic, and basically both of them weren't looking after themselves during that time. My wife
Yeah.
was dehydrated, and my dad didn't do the right thing about his
Yeah.
medication.
To be honest with you, my wife was really the only one who wasn't worried. She is probably the most positive person I know. And she's extremely faithful in her religion, her Christianity. And she's praying and praying. And she's like, "You're going to be fine. Don't worry about it." And that was in my mindset. I'm like, "Are you sure you want to like get married?" I'm like, "I don't know if I'm going to die young. Like, you have your whole life ahead of you." And she goes, "Don't worry about it. You'll be fine." It was pretty funny. She's got a funny outlook on
Yeah.
like the severity of my condition. And she's kind of like my soldier. She's the one that's making sure I don't eat any salt. She's the one that, is very strict on like how she cooks. And I'm pretty lucky. I'm pretty lucky because I don't know if I would have been as healthy afterwards if she wasn't like so like, militant on the way like I was supposed to eat and the way I was supposed to exercise.
And what do you think's behind that, Theo? Is it
I don't know. They don't know either. They're a little bit shocked, especially with what just happened a couple months ago. They're a little bit like not understanding of like my condition. They keep on saying that it'll probably be smart for them to kind of log everything that I've kind of been going through, because they can't really pinpoint a cause for the blood pressure. Especially right now, my blood pressure is the best it's ever been, ever. And they don't know whether it's because they fixed whatever the problem was, or it could be a lot of things. I'm not a type of person to be stressed out.
about
I'm
it?
not like, I'm not that kind of person.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was really my diet. I think a lot of it might have been my cannabis use in some cases. I know smoking does like, raise your blood pressure. But I think I was trying the DASH diet and all these diets, and it wasn't really going down. I even quit smoking and it wasn't going down. And they were kind of confused with, like, I think from 2015, like post stroke, to like 2018, I was on 7 or 8 different drugs trying to figure out how to lower the blood pressure. Because my average was 189 over like 88.
Yeah.
And that was my average for years.
Wow, which means it's
And
much higher a long time.
And I'm like, I felt great. I felt fine. They were like, you shouldn't feel fine. And I'm like, I feel great. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh man, something's gonna happen. They're worried, right? They're like, it's too high. And especially with what happened 4 months ago, my blood pressure was over 200, over like 99. And they were like, what's going on? So it's really weird.
Yeah. You come across as mild-mannered, pretty calm, pretty chill.
Pretty calm.
Yeah. And
I have the Greek anger. Don't get me wrong. We all have it. It's inside, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't come out very often, but when it does, people are like, oh, he's Greek.
The fury.
Yeah. But I'm honestly, I have a good outlook on life. I don't worry about anything. I'm not, I don't know. I don't have anxiety. I don't have depression. They're really, after my incident, they were really worried. They're like, you might need to talk to somebody. And I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm not worried about that. So
and are you really good though? Really?
I'm pretty good. Especially with what just happened.
Yeah.
I've never been that close to death. And I didn't have the feeling I was gonna die, even though I think they were expecting me to die.
Wow.
So and I should have been more nervous because well, might as well talk about it. So 4 months ago I had a type A dissection. So I was watching TV and my dog started barking at me for no reason. And she started nipping at my arm. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? And then I suddenly got a crazy pain in my neck. And then I felt it shoot to my leg. My thigh started aching and my leg just went dead. My foot started turning blue. And I called my wife. I'm like, I think I'm having a stroke. I'm not sure. I'm like, I'm in a lot of pain. She like rushed home. She looked at me and I was sweating. Like I was like sweating. And she's like, we got to call 911.
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
Called 911. They came. The second they looked at me, they picked me up and like ran downstairs and got me into the ambulance because they're like, we don't have time. So brought me to the hospital, straight down to CT scan, did the scan, brought me back up to the cardiac unit, and they put IVs in both arms, which I'm like, I've had hundreds of these by now. So I'm like, yeah, go ahead. And they shot me with fragment again, and they got my blood pressure. So my blood pressure was 201 over 103 or something like that. They brought it down. And I think by the time it got to 174 over, I think 82, something like that, a nurse came and she's like, you're gonna need open heart surgery. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I thought it was my leg. She goes, no. Right now we have 2 surgeons on their way. They're gonna be here any minute, and they're gonna come talk to you, and you are gonna have surgery in about 20 minutes. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? And so the surgeons came. There were like 2 young guys, really nice guys. And suddenly I had like forms on my chest. And they're like, sign these right now. We don't have time. And I'm like, what's going on? And the one guy pretty much said, your aortic valve's peeling like an onion. And he's like, if we don't open you up right now, it's going to burst. So I signed them. They left. The nurse looked at me like grave. I got so nervous for a second. I'm like, am I going to die? And all she said was, you should call your family.
Shit.
And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm thinking like, what am I going to do here? I can't call my mom because she'll just die. So I can't call my mom. So I called my sister. My wife is like freaking out because she thought it was my leg. She's like, what's going on? And I kind of explained everything. And I called a couple friends. I'm like, watch my mom if anything happens. And then before I knew it, I was like moving towards the hallway into the elevator. They were cutting my clothes off in the elevator. And I got to the surgical room. They strapped my arms and they covered me in pink stuff. And I woke up 6 hours later. Or no, apparently I woke up 6 hours later, like bursting and moving. They brought me back down. They kept my chest open for another 4 hours in case of stroke. And they pretty much told my wife that if I stroked, I would have died. And I think after that, I woke up and I looked like Frankenstein. I have like a massive incision. I have an incision going this way, and I had a hole in my stomach with wires poking out. And that was it. And I was like, wow, I didn't see a light. So pretty good. So, so I wasn't that nervous because I didn't see the light. So,
Boy,
but
man,
it
that's
was great.
isn't it amazing what the human body can endure? Like to
Oh,
think that, that dissection, which is bloody minor, that is so small,
yeah,
that
it's
dissection.
small.
It's not a very big thing. That puts your life at risk, but these guys can open your chest up, open your arm up, open all
Man,
these things, do all these things, and then the body's going, I can deal with that, no
yeah.
problem.
And honestly, these two young guys, they were looking at me like I was like a roast beef dinner. They couldn't wait to get me open. I could see it in their eyes. Like they were so excited, and I think I made their day, you know.
They're
But
the kind of
yeah,
surgeons you want on
it's
your team, isn't it? Like they're the
oh, they
ones
were so they were
you want.
so excited,
They're like ready
and
to go on
they're
the field to do a try, to do a touchdown, to do a whatever, score a goal.
oh they were like the champions of the day. They conquered a huge mountain that day. Especially everybody that I've talked to since I've had to go to the vein clinic. I've had a million doctor's appointments in 4 months,
Yeah.
and everybody's so surprised I'm alive. I get treated so differently by doctors. They're like they don't know if I'm a ghost. They don't know if it's like a sixth sense, like a Bruce Willis thing, where like, are you dead or alive? I don't know, because you're looking at my paperwork and they're like, holy shit, like I can't believe you survived this.
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah, I think I had really good surgeons.
You have
You know,
amazing surgeons. I mean, modern
yeah.
medicine is next level
Oh,
amazing. Forget it. None of us would be
incredible.
here. Oh,
Oh, 20 years ago,
we're gone.
RIP, gone.
We're all gone.
Both of us.
There's,
20
yeah,
years
man,
ago, maybe 30 years ago, we both probably wouldn't be here.
100%. And then we've got 200 or more people on my podcast that would not have made a podcast
Oh,
if this was happening years ago.
oh,
Back
so
when our
lucky.
parents arrived from Greece, for example.
Yeah,
Forget it. So yeah,
so
that's
true.
unbelievable. So when I'm looking, I've actually Googled what a type A dissection looks like,
Hmm.
and the it's not a big deal when you look at the amount of the artery
Yeah,
that gets damaged. Like it's a small amount, but
yeah,
that being said, that's a small amount creates a catastrophic leak out of the
yeah,
artery, and
absolutely.
therefore there's no circulation, proper circulation, and then all sorts of issues. So the fact that they got that sorted, that's amazing. So what? So how long did it take for you to get out of hospital after that second surgery? And 4 days? 4 days.
Because of COVID, they
Ah,
were worried. I tested positive the day after my surgery, but I had
uh-huh,
COVID a month prior.
uh-huh.
And I also had my second vaccine a month prior as well. And in Canada, they kind of let go all the nurses that didn't want to get vaccine.
Mm,
So the amount of nurses working in that ward were, I think it was 4 nurses for like 50 or 60 patients, something like that. And those nurses were run ragged. They were exhausted. You could tell. You can just see it in them that they were so tired, and they were trying to take care of everybody. And like honestly, those 4 days were brutal. They had me on hydromorphone. I was seeing spiders molding out of the walls. Like I was high, and I pretty much said like, I need to get out of here. Like I'm afraid I'm gonna get sick. And they're like, you need to get out of here. So they said pretty much if I do physiotherapy, I can be, as long as I can get in and out of my bed by myself, they'll kick me out. So I started physiotherapy right away. I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I didn't like the food.
mm.
They wouldn't let me shower. And hydromorphone makes you sweat. And I was just and I had like people coughing all over everywhere. And I'm like, I gotta get out of here. So like 4 days, and then recovery at home was an absolute horror show.
Hard.
It was brutal.
What were
I
you
don't think I
dealing with?
slept for 2 weeks.
What were you dealing with? Pain.
Um, the pain was actually not good, and especially with a surgery like that, they kind of remove your lungs and then they put them back. So I had to deal with collapsed lung on the left the first week, and then collapsed lung on the right. And there's this fluid that comes out, and they make you cough. So you gotta hold it. You gotta hold a pillow and cough. The cough feels like somebody is kicking you in the lungs with a boot made out of razor blades. It's horrible. And I thought that was bad. I think that was one of the worst. Was the coughing was terrible. I couldn't sleep. The second I would lay down, like we bought pillows to help us angle myself a certain way. Nothing really worked. I had to sleep sitting up. And it was a nightmare for like 2 weeks. It was a nightmare. I couldn't eat. I was pretty much just eating like bananas and oranges. And then the painkillers, they bind you up. So you have a hard time going to the washroom. It was just, the first 2 weeks were really bad.
Mm. Are they the hardest 2 weeks of your life?
I think so. I think so. It slowly started getting better. I think after the first month, everything started getting better. I had to stop taking the pain meds because then they put me on Tylenol 3s, and I had to poop. I'm like, I can't take these drugs anymore. And then I finally went to the washroom, but it was like I gave birth to like a farmer's boot. Like it was just a nightmare. And so I'm like, I'm not taking these drugs anymore. I'll take my Protozol and everything they need me to take for my blood pressure, but I'm not taking the pain meds. So I just toughed it out. It out.
Yeah, that's what I did. I stopped taking pain medication, and I don't recommend anyone does anything that I say or do. I started taking pain medication the second day after brain surgery,
Oh,
and they were telling me you should take it. And I'm like, no, I want to know what I'm feeling. I want to feel what I'm feeling. I don't want to not feel. And I
yeah.
think I did it because I wanted to be connected to my body. So if something was happening, I could say, hang on a sec, this is not pain of surgery or anything like that. This is what it is. And even now, I'll come home, I'll have a headache every once in a while or really bad migraine.
Yeah.
And my wife's going, did you take something for it? I'm not, no, I don't think I'm going to take anything. I'm just going to wait it out, sit it out, see what it is. Because I feel like if I take pain medication, it may disguise something that I don't know is happening, and I don't want to do that. I want to just be aware of it. So I just do.
Yeah.
I do what we're supposed to have done, and what people thousands of years before us did. They probably went and rested. They did less. They lie down. They go into a dark room. They do all these things, and they just get through it. That's how I deal with it. I don't put up with it. However, I do know that it is important for a lot of people. That's why I'm saying don't do what I do. It's important for a lot of people to take medication, especially pain medication, because when you're in excruciating, say, debilitating pain, for some people, it can cause high blood pressure and then other issues.
Absolutely.
And decrease the recovery rate and make the person worse. So that's why I say don't do what I do.
Honestly, coughing was giving me PTS, to be honest with you. I was so scared to cough that I would hold it in and my body would be trembling. Because I'm like, if I cough, I know what it's gonna feel like, and it's just terrible. And I just had to like tough it out. And I'm like, that's it. I'm just gonna cough my brains out and try to get it all out. Get all the phlegm out I can get. And eventually the time came when like the coughing just stopped.
Yeah.
About a month.
Clear it up.
But they don't like they don't really kind of explain like the recovery to you. They kind of tell you a little bit,
Mm,
but they don't tell you the amount of like torture that it is on your body, and especially like the torture that it is on my wife, because like, she had a hard time. Like she took like honestly after surgery like that, I had to be showered, I had to be fed. Like I was like not able to take care of myself.
mm.
And it really makes you wonder how people that are alone are capable of taking care of themselves after an incident like what I had. I don't know how they would do it,
And
and I felt so thankful that I had her to,
look out for you.
yeah, like I don't know how you would do it on your own. It's
Yeah.
impossible. It's
Yeah.
impossible.
I know a lot of people who become caregivers also, they don't get a rule book, or they don't get trained, or they don't get support. And
Yeah.
think about it, there's stroke survivors who become uh, incapacitated permanently, and then they're sent home to a loved one, and then that
Yeah.
loved one's got to do what your wife did for years, and then
Yeah.
no one
Yeah.
thinks to check in on that loved one and go, hey, how you going, how you doing, do you need some
Yeah.
support? It's
Yeah.
I know some family and friends do that from time to time, but then they go back to life that they've got to get back to. And the caregivers do it really tough. They do really tough, sometimes harder
I
than
have
the
a lot of
emotions.
respect for people who do that for a living, because I think you have to be a very special person to take care of people
Mm,
like that. You know, it's a hard job, and I don't know. I don't know. It is tough.
yeah.
I feel bad for people who have long lasting effects,
Mm,
because like you've always known growing up people who have had strokes and they
mm,
have a little bit of a drop, or maybe like I think a friend of mine, her dad lost the use of his left arm or right arm, and he was never the same. He was never the same. He
mm,
couldn't do the smallest tasks at home,
mm.
and a more burden was on his wife. And I think he eventually passed, but I think he passed, almost in the sense that like he almost passed of a broken heart in a weird way,
Mm,
because he lost the life that he was so used to living,
mm.
and he just became such a miserable old guy. You know,
It's
feel so
tough
bad
for
for him.
It is tough. I mean, most of the people that come on this podcast have their life has changed dramatically. It's completely different, and they do have the ability to redirect it. Their
Mhm.
identity does evolve, and it emerges into something new. But the people
Yeah,
that I've found that have struggled the most are the people who have been a certain way, say for 80 years,
yeah,
and they feel like, or they believe that they're near death, or there's not a lot of time left, so they don't try, they don't put any effort in, they get depressed about this is how my life is going to end, or whatever. And I think it's just a mindset that people have, because sometimes you come across older people who are in their 70s and 80s who go, stuff this, my leg doesn't work, my arm doesn't work, let's jump out of a plane. And it's like,
yeah.
they have the same idea that they might not be around for a long time, but instead of sitting at home wallowing for no reason, they decide, well, stuff it, let's jump out of a plane. If the plane
I love
doesn't
that.
kill me, then it's a bonus.
Yeah, I
So
love that.
I get it. I get some people really get down. I remember seeing my dad have knee surgery. My dad's probably going to be 80 next year, and it
For
was
him.
about 3 or 4 years ago. And for the first time in his life, he was really unable to be mobile, just because he had knee surgery. He had to rest it 6 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever it was going to be. He was so depressed. He became instantly depressed, and he was a shadow of himself just because he couldn't walk and drive the car. And it's
So
like,
sad.
dude, like, just let it rest and heal and sit on your bum for a little bit. In your 75 years, You've had awesome health. Everything's fine. You've got a knee that's worn out. That's all it's done. It's just worn out. They're going to
Yeah.
replace it, and you'll be
Yeah.
back on your feet. Try get
Yeah.
him to see the positive in that, and that 6 weeks is going to fly by, or 10 weeks is going to fly by, and then he'll be okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Some people, you just can't get him out. That you can't get him out of it, and he's so used to being well that that surgery that he did, which was his choice to do it because it was painful to not do it,
Yeah.
it still wasn't, that the concept wasn't, he wasn't able to grasp the concept of this is short term. That's what it was. And he was
Yeah.
thinking that this is how it's going to be forever. I won't be able to walk. Every other
Yeah.
person that's had knee replacement surgery, they've all walked. That's what
Oh,
happens.
absolutely.
That's the next
Absolutely.
stage. He was a mess.
Yeah. You know what? My dad worked at Ford Motor Car Company, and he ended up getting injured at work, and he broke his wrist, but it was a type of break that they couldn't really fix and operate on at that time. So he ended up retiring early, getting disability, and he kind of lost the use of like some of his hand. So he just did everything with the other hand. He's like, I got two. My dad was very positive,
Yeah.
and he's like, I got this one. I'm okay. I could do everything with this arm.
Yeah.
So I kind of grew up with my dad kind of being like in a positive state with like anytime he would ever hurt himself, and he hurt himself a lot, trust me.
Yeah.
I've seen my dad trying to fix a fan and it fly across a room and come out of him and it slice his arm. I've seen my dad passed a year ago at 95, and he died with tools in his hands. He just never stopped. He just never stopped. It's just the mindset, right?
That's it. That's what my dad is. And to make him stop was a hard thing. But also stroke, what stroke does, Theo? It actually interferes with people's ability to have positivity sometimes. Sometimes it also interferes, with the brain to the point where they can't be happy or positive. So it depends on where it gets you, right? So you can understand it, as well as it's difficult to see, but sometimes you can understand it. It's the people around the person who's unwell, that's a sign that they need to step up and grow personally and develop a different understanding, a different way of approaching things. And being devastated is not helpful for anybody. It's not helpful for the person who's unwell. It's not helpful for the person who's caring. And that's what I love, what you said about your wife. It's like, you'll be right. Everything will be fine. We'll work it out. And
I think
that's
some
so
people
important.
may not know that they're depressed or that they're down. They might just, not notice the change in them. My wife did notice a little bit with me after the surgery, and she's like, don't worry about it. Everything's gonna be okay. Cause like not working after a surgery like that, and like in Canada, if you're self-employed, you don't get help from the government. Right? So we're lucky because she works. So I was able to like take time off and not really worry too much. Really, really fortunate. But it happened at such a weird point because like I wrote a book and it was getting published, and my type A dissection happened a week before my publishing date. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, there's all this stuff I need to do with Instagram and Facebook. I got to promote my book, and I couldn't do anything. So like the book came out like worldwide, every single bookstore, like Amazon, everything. And I was like, not able to do anything. So things happen.
Tell me
Life
about
happens.
tell me about the lead up to that. Therefore, it's taken you some years to get to the point of writing the book. Or
Yeah, it's a 3-year process for me to write the book.
yeah.
It's like a preteen coming of age story about a princess whose kingdom gets overthrown by an underground like slave king, and it's kind of like Lord of the Rings meets like Mean Girls in a weird way. But all my characters are insects, and it's my way of kind of talking about like, you know, classism and racism. There's like white beetles and black beetles, and there's magic, and there's these magic stones, and there's like brutal villains, and there's war scenes, and so I wanted to do something kind of epic. And
there it
okay,
is.
show you.
Yeah.
And
Loshi and the Battle.
Loshi,
Read it.
Loshi and the Battle for the Godstones.
Yeah.
I think the ring light's making a ring on the cover.
Yeah. It looks awesome. The cover's awesome.
Thank you. So I don't know. I think life just throws you curveballs, and you know, I didn't, you know, my wife's just like, don't worry about it. You know, she's like, the book's gonna do well because this is the most original thing anybody's ever like seen. Nobody's ever made something like this, and people will get attracted to it. And her positivity just made me kind of not so nervous about everything, you know? And I'm like, yeah, what am I gonna do? I have to recover, you know? But I'm sure there was times when like I was down. Obviously, there's no way you can go through something like that and be happy.
Yeah.
You know? But you know, I had a lot going on. My dad was a hoarder. So before all that, I was trying to clean up my mom's house. And it was hard for my sister to take care of my mom completely without me, because we do everything 50-50. And it was just, timing's never good for anything, like health-wise, right?
And
So,
life
like,
just goes on around you, no matter what. You're not going
no
to
matter what.
pause it and then get back to the stuff you need to go back to. People's lives go on. Everything happens, you know.
Yeah, I was really lucky. I feel really lucky. I have amazing friends. I had people bringing us food. You know, I had friends bringing me Jello because that's the only thing I could eat at the hospital because I'm lactose, and they kept on bringing me milk. But like, honestly, like I was very fortunate. I had friends constantly coming and visiting, and you know, honestly, I if anything, in a small way, I feel like this incident kind of made me feel better about living in a small way. I don't feel like I take things for granted as much. You know, I'm more cautious about like making sure that I talk to certain people more often, you know, and I don't know. It makes you think a lot, you know?
I can relate to that, man. We,
You know?
I have this thing I can relate to how easily, you know, things could have got a lot worse for me, and I could have been on the other side, because I was on the other side for a little bit, the part where, you know, you can't walk, you can't do this, you can't talk, you can't think, you can't remember. You know, I went through all of the things temporarily, the majority of those things temporarily that some people go through for a lot longer or permanently. And I see people, you know, I see people in the street asking for money and all that kind of thing. And I can relate to them. I was so close to being in a position where I was that desperate, you know, that I would have, that my normal world would have changed, whatever that was, you know, like so completely and totally that it's not unfathomable that you could end up in that situation. A lot of people that are on the street end up being there because of, you know, mental health issues or all sorts of things, right? So
anything's possible.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I do now is I speak to people that I never would have spoken to before, especially people on the
Yeah.
street. Once in a while, I'll
Yeah.
stop, have a chat, whatever. Just give them a bit of an opportunity to talk to somebody under normal conditions, or I don't know what. And that, and amongst other people that I know that I love, who I make sure I reach out to and that are on my mind and all that, I just ring, if they're on my mind, I just go and see them and that type of thing. So it has made me more aware of the other humans on the planet that are around me, and it's not just about me. And
Yeah.
it does feel good to acknowledge somebody who gets no acknowledgement all day, who gets walked past all day, every day,
Yeah.
and is just hoping for a few dollars or somebody to say hello or whatever. That it feels good to just do that, hoping, thinking in my mind, thinking that I don't want to be, say I find myself in that situation in the future. I don't want to be looking back and going, shit, I should have spoken to all those people when I had the chance. And now look at me, no one's
Yeah.
speaking to me, etc.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. I most people listening to this have a massive shift in their perspective about what's important and what's not important in life,
So how can you not? How can you not?
Yeah.
Especially like when I was in the hospital, I think it was the day after my surgery. And I believe somebody actually had passed in the ward I was in from the
Mm.
exact same thing,
Mm.
a type A, right? And I could kind of see the nurse talking to the wife, and she was bawling her eyes out.
Mm.
And I'm like, that could have been me.
Mm.
And I'm like, and I hope, and it's just, there's no like, it's weird how there's no like aura or anything that happens before something like that incident happens. I didn't have like a weird feeling in my head. I didn't
Mm.
have anything. It just happened.
Mm. Mm.
There's no warning. So like, I'm sure they were just living their normal life. And then maybe he collapsed, or he started feeling his arm went dead, or who knows.
I
And
have a
now, you know, I felt so bad for her,
I have a friend of mine who passed
you
away
know.
last 3 months, and he was in his late 50s, and he's a pretty healthy guy, tall, strong, fit, healthy, all that stuff. Doing all the things
Yeah.
he always did, and then I find out that he's in hospital, and they didn't explain it like you did. They didn't say it was a dissection. They may not have known the words yet, but they said that he had a tear in one of his arteries leading to the heart,
Mhm.
and it caused a heart attack. And the heart attack was what got him to hospital. And when he got to hospital, they brought him back. They've saved him, but his heart was really injured as a result of the heart attack. So it was not
Mhm.
not working optimally.
It got beat up.
Yeah. So I found out that he was unwell, and I sent him a message saying, "Hey, mate, video message. Hey, it's Bill. Everything's just ringing to say, just sending you a message to say hello. The rest of it, and I want you back. And when you get back, we'll go and have something to eat, and we'll talk about stuff and whatever." It's a
Mhm.
guy that I used to see a couple times a year, and because I have a painting company, we had just finished painting his house maybe a couple of months earlier, and then he sends me a message back saying, "Yeah, we definitely have to talk about some things, my heart, whatever." And he says, "It's been really beat up. It's been really beat up. I'm afraid I may have damaged it," is what he said in his message.
Mhm.
And I said, "You'll be right. We'll see you in a little while." 3 days later, his partner posts on Facebook that he's passed away. And it was something like that. There was no sign, there was no idea that there was something going wrong, and he passed away. So that's exactly what you're saying. You're the guy who didn't, which is fantastic, and then you're thinking about the other people who did. And I don't know about you, but I did go through a fair long amount of time where I was like, why did I survive? Like, What's so
Oh
special
yeah,
about me?
absolutely.
Survivor's guilt. Did you get that?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I was kind of like I was kind of in between of like not understanding what happened
Mm,
and like and trying to like realize like, am I alive because of these surgeons, or am I alive because my wife and like her mom in Africa had like 1,000 people praying for me? Like, is there a reason like I'm alive right now? Is it like almost like, is there something I'm supposed to do now?
that's a great question, man.
You know, like, is there something am I supposed to like keep on writing books? Am I supposed to like change a career and go into like nursing? Like what am I supposed to do? And I still don't know. To be
Yeah,
honest with you, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
I think
But
I know.
I think if anything, it's given me a better idea of faith, and
Mm,
I'm learning a bit more about faith. And we grew up Greek Orthodox.
mm,
So like we're very traditional, where my
mhm.
wife is like a more modern version of Christianity. And they're they really believe in the power of prayer. And I think in the back of my mind, I just feel like there's got to be something I'm supposed to do. I just don't know what it is.
I think I know. I think you need to write a trilogy. There's got to be more to the story of the Loshi and the battle for the
Yeah,
Godstone.
maybe,
It's got to
maybe,
be, man. You know, and
maybe.
then at some point, some director's got to go. Maybe we can make this into a movie. You know,
Yeah, maybe
uh,
that'd
an
be
an
pretty cool.
an animation version.
Yeah, yeah, I would
You
love
know,
that.
so I think that's what you're supposed to do now because
And to be honest with you, like I think 3 months after my surgery, my wife got pregnant.
yeah, there you go.
Right. So I think that's kind of a miracle too, because we were trying for a really long time, and then it just worked. We were doing IVF and it just wasn't working, and we were spending a lot of money on
Yeah,
IVF.
yeah.
And then I had my incident, and the fertility doctor's like, trauma and hormones
Just go
seems
for
to just make magic.
it.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be a dad now, and I'm 45, and we were planning our life to not have kids.
Yeah.
Like I spent all my money on records, so like, and like she's in Rwanda right now. We travel all the time,
Yeah.
and and now I'm having a baby, and
It
I'm like,
doesn't change
wow,
much, man. It doesn't change much. My sons are 20, my sons are 26 and 22. I'm 48.
yeah,
So I was a young dad. I was
you
22
look
and
good, you look
ah,
great.
it's the Greek genes, man. It's just the
It is,
genetics,
it
you
is,
know.
yeah,
And and it doesn't change much. Having kids doesn't change much. There is a routine that you have to get into, especially when they go to school and maybe preschool, and there's a
yeah,
little bit of work. But we took them everywhere. We dragged them to parties. They were sleeping in the corner on a chair underneath a table. Like, we just took them. They were full of energy. So we were as well, because we were so young. And it's like, let's just go. Let's just not miss out on stuff. And the kids are resilient. They survived. We had a routine 99% of the time, but when it came to doing stuff, we just went and did it. Like if you guys need to
yeah,
travel, there's nothing better than traveling with a little kid. The plane
yeah,
ride might be terrible, but after that, you know,
yeah.
it's
I'm sure
fine.
people just want to throw you out of the plane, even
They
in
do.
midair. Yeah,
Absolutely, they do. But it's
yeah,
okay. After that, it's not a big deal. And the child becomes so well adjusted, so well rounded. They get to see things that, you never would have,
yeah,
you never saw when you were growing up. You haven't been to all these places with your parents. I never went anywhere with my parents that wasn't local,
yeah.
so, and I think you'll be fine. It doesn't really change your life. It changes your priorities and how you think about things. But the order in which you're doing things, I think, is cool because you've got so much life experience. You know what's important about life. You've had that lesson the hard way. I got it the other way around. So I worked like a donkey for decades, and too much and too hard and too fast, and not enough sleep and not enough looking after myself, and missed out on those younger years with my kids.
Mm.
And when I was sick, one of my biggest regrets is that I was sick in their teenage years where they were in the zone for camping, fishing, and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And I was too sick to go.
Yeah.
And I can't get them back to do that with me now because they're not
Yeah.
in that phase anymore. You know,
Yeah.
so your way of doing it, not that there's a perfect way to get well and become better, like, but your way of doing it, I think, is okay because you have the really wise lessons that you're gained from your experiences, you know, and so does your wife, and you guys know what's important, you know. And
Yeah.
what a great place to take a child, you know, to Rwanda. Is that where your wife's from?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. To Rwanda, you know.
They're yeah, they were there when everything went really
Happened.
bad in '94
Uh-huh.
and escaped.
Yes.
Came to Canada through refugee status,
Yes.
and they all were brought up here, and now they go there, and it's remarkable there. I
Yeah.
have to tell you, it's such a great place to travel.
Yeah.
I haven't had so much fun.
Yeah.
Like I go to Hawaii, I go surfing in Hawaii
Yeah.
like once in a while, and it's just Rwanda's just so friendly, and it's so futuristic thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Their leaders are always thinking about how can we make things better so everybody can have jobs.
Mm-hmm.
They have Volkswagen there, they have beer factories there, they have malls, they have stores. Everything's evolving so quickly.
Mm.
And it's very impressive, I have to
Yeah.
be honest.
Yeah.
Going there is so much fun.
And then you're experiencing a new culture as well. The way they do
I
things is
love
a
it.
little bit different, and it's a bit quirkier, and you're not used to it.
I love it.
And that's why it's going to be awesome. You're going to have a kid, and it's going to be like, "Phew, what a great thing, you know, to be able to have that those massive cultural differences, and to
Oh yeah.
expose your child to the vast range of all that stuff, from the Greek background
Yeah.
to the
It's
Rwanda
exciting.
background. Man, it's huge. It's awesome. So, you know, you're
Yeah.
not, and the thing is, you're never ready for kids. There's no such thing as, oh yeah, we'll be ready in 2015. No, you're never ready
Yeah,
for
yeah.
them.
I
They
feel
come,
that. I feel
they
that.
come along and they mess up everything. So you've got to really just go with the flow, and you've got to be really comfortable with, you know,
Yeah.
being about somebody else and not about you
I'm
all
more
the time.
excited than anything. I'm more excited.
Yeah.
I feel like, this is like a new chapter, you
Hmm.
know. I'm ready. My dad was 50 when I was born,
Yeah. Wow.
right? So my mom was 40, and so like I don't even remember my dad not having white hair, to be honest with you. So I'm on my way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But both of us lost our dads within 3 months last year,
Mm,
and we both are you know we both have our values from our parents, but more of our dads.
mm,
My dad was like very strict, and he was always the first to make everything good if something wasn't good. If somebody needed help, my dad was the one that helped them. If somebody needed food, my dad was the one that always went grocery shopping and bought that family food.
mm,
My dad was always that guy, just like her dad.
mm,
Her dad, I think he's paid for so many people's university. He's just one of those guys, and they have a foundation in his name in Africa.
wow.
And it's just that giving aspect.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be like. I really want my book to do really well so I can create an education fund
There
for
you go.
people to like go to school. Because without school, life's hard.
Yeah, it
You
is.
need education, you
There
know?
you go. There you go, man. That's your what am I supposed to do with my life is starting to evolve. There's a child that you need to be responsible for and grow and
Mm.
give good values and pass down those values that you've been raised on and that your wife's been raised on. And then you've got this way to speak to the world, the community, the population through books, in your story writing, in your telling of stories, that, as you know, like through books like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
it just drives creativity for the entire planet, and it's such a massive way to reach
Like an
so many
explosion
people.
of imagination.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah,
what we
for
need.
sure.
We need creativity
Yeah.
and imagination, and that comes out of a book that somebody, J.K. Rowling wrote when she was in hard times and she didn't know
Yeah.
how it was going to go, and she puts this book out and then captures the whole entire world's imagination. And that's what you're supposed to do, man. If that's
Yeah.
what you're good at, let's do that.
Yeah.
Man, gosh, there's no better way through a book.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Very true. I think it's I I just feel like you're put into like life situations for a reason, and eventually things just kind of smack you in the face eventually,
Yeah,
you know.
they
And
make it obvious.
yeah, and like everything you've been through and like with your podcast, I'm sure you've helped more people than you probably know, you know.
It's impossible to know, and it's so good that I can't even contemplate how big it is, because I never intended it. Let me tell you, I was like you, like, what am I going to do with my time now and all that stuff? And I did the podcast for selfish reasons. Now, in a nice way, as in, I didn't have enough of a community around me and I needed to create one, and I didn't know how. But I do love the sound of my own voice. I love talking.
Yeah.
Uh, so what I thought is I'll meet people all over the world. There's got to be more than one
Yeah.
stroke survivor that will talk
Yeah.
to me. So
Yeah.
I did that, and then I thought I'll just keep going. And at the beginning, it was really hard, man. 2015 is when it started, and I didn't put a lot of episodes in. I didn't have the health, the energy levels, or anything like that. I wasn't organized enough. I was still recovering a year out of my brain surgery, so it wasn't that spectacular back then. But it was just one thing after another, one little step after the other, after the other.
Yeah.
And this is how I be creative. This is what's enabled me to be creative. But what I didn't know, Theo, was that it was going to lead to other things that I had no idea about. I couldn't have imagined that I would A, have 200 episodes, B, that I would be getting invited to speak on podcasts from
Yeah.
people all around the world. And also, I didn't realize that it was going to spawn a book, which is the book that I'm writing now, which is
Yeah.
the working, which I talk about almost on every episode now, which is because it's coming closer. I'm at chapter 7 now out of 10. And
Yeah.
the book's working title is Strokes, the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me. And I didn't think, how could I possibly have imagined a book title like that before the stroke? Like, how is that even possible? And,
Absolutely.
and then to find that the book actually came to be because when I was saying that, some people said it back to me, and I reached out to the Instagram community and people came back to me and said, yeah, that's me too. And I was like, well, let me interview you. And then I found out that we had these things in common. All of us had these 10 things in common, and that's going to make the 10 chapters. And I'm not an author of any kind, but I've got this thing that's emerged from something else that I've done. And it feels like my purpose now, but I wasn't setting out to find my purpose. I was just doing amazing things and going, what the hell? I'm here for a short time. I may as well do it,
You know what? I think when it's meant to come out, it spills out.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, writing this book, I don't even read books, to be honest with you. I'm an artist.
Me too, man.
So like for me to write this book that is like so different than like anything I've ever done, it just came out like it was meant to be. It was just meant to be. And it's probably what you're going through. It's just meant to come out. It's meant to be on paper,
Mm.
and it's meant to be read. That's all it is. I feel like most things happen that way, where if it's meant to be, it just happens.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm going with it. I don't mind it. It's
Yeah,
the hardest thing I've ever done is write this book. I'm
for
telling you,
sure.
it messes with my brain every single day. And when I'm not writing about it, it's the only thing I'm thinking about.
Yeah,
Far out. It just
yeah,
occupies so much of my brain, and I need to get it done, and I do it as much as I
yeah.
can. But yeah, it's
I
just
keep a
interesting.
notepad in my car. I keep a notepad, like a piece of paper in my pocket,
Mm,
and I'm always writing down ideas
mm,
because I'll forget. I'll forget so
same.
quickly. And it's funny how things happen, right? I really believe when something's meant to be, you almost don't have control in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just gonna come out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I felt that way with some of the art that I've created. And especially with Loshi, it's just meant to be. I was meant to write this story, and it's weird. It's weird. I found myself diving into something that I had to do like almost like 6 months of like insectology to understand insects.
Wow.
All my characters are so many different insects, and I had to figure out like
How they
names, and I
behave.
had to create a language.
Wow.
And I wanted the language to represent certain insects, and like names have to represent certain insects. And I was very influenced by my wife's African family, so I copied a lot of like African names.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a connection to everything. My book is like a big quilt of ideas and connections, you know? And it's just meant to be. It
Yeah.
just came out. It's just meant to be, you
And
know?
books tend to be there. They imitate, or they don't imitate life. They grab things from everywhere and they reorder them in a way that's unique to
Yeah.
your version of it. Because
Yeah.
and then they create this thing with words that's never been created before, because there's an infinite number of ways to reorder words and to tell a story.
Yeah.
And
For
that's what
sure.
you need. You need life experience to bring them all together, or you need an amazing imagination and creativity. I never had
Yeah.
any of that, but now I've got life experience. And that life experience
It's
is what
almost like
I'm,
a door's been opened.
yeah,
Like a door's been opened inside of you.
yes,
And it's all coming out.
that's it.
It's like a gust of wind of ideas that just kind of get blown through a window,
Yeah.
you know, and you're just trapping it somehow. That's how I felt when I was writing, you
And
know?
with your art, is that your cover then? Is that your artistic work on the cover?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a bunch of different stuff scattered. I have nowhere to put it, so it has to go on my walls until I sell stuff.
Yeah,
I
right.
have separation anxiety, so I have a hard time selling my art.
Wow. So you
Yeah.
create it, you love it, and then you can't sell it because you love it
Yeah, I
so
want
much.
to keep it. Yeah, yeah. Pretty bad for that. But my wife's made me sell some stuff. She's just like, we're running out of room. So we have a university in our city, McMaster University, and they have an innovation park. So I have a big piece there, and I think it's there till October, and I'll probably sell that, unfortunately. But it's good to have the money. So
You look sad about it.
yeah, I don't like selling my art. I get very attached. I get very attached to my art.
See, some people have a problem selling their art because they think it's no good, or
No, I just have a
who would
hard
want
time
to
getting
buy
rid
it?
of it because I think it's good.
Yeah.
But also having people have my art, because I've sold about maybe 150 pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing I guess my biggest fear might be that it's going to be in somebody's closet
Mm-hmm.
and not on a wall. I've always had that fear.
Mm-hmm.
But like I see people posting pictures on Instagram, and in the background I see my painting, and I'm like, okay, it's okay. It's good. You know, so yeah,
Maybe you
it's
have to
pretty
have
weird.
terms and conditions with the sale of your art. If you
I
ever
don't
ends
know.
up in a wardrobe or in a cupboard, please pass
Ugh.
it on to another person who's going to appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I can't live with that. That's brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like somebody burying my book. Like, what are you doing? You know?
That's hilarious. You know that books do have to live on a bookshelf for some time though after they get read, right?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
But you're looking at the book cover and you think that's a piece of art as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I this like I got published by Book Baby,
Uh-huh.
and this took about a month of us like disagreeing and agreeing and disagreeing and agreeing.
Mm-hmm.
And they were getting very frustrated with me. And I'm like, it's got to be perfect. And then they gave me a different artist and he hit it out of the park. He did a great job.
Okay, so you were advising on the cover.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I'm like, it's got to be perfect, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And Book Baby's owned by Amazon, right? So I got it's still being self-published, but they do all the distribution and they get it in every single bookstore. Barnes and Noble, Target, everybody's carried it, right?
Right.
So, but Amazon's probably the number one way people, I think, buy books these days. I think most of my sales have been Amazon.
Yeah.
And I think I've sold more digital copy than paper copy,
Mm-hmm.
which is normal, I think, these days.
Well, it's $10 for a digital copy and $24 for a paper copy.
Yeah,
And when everyone's got a
absolutely.
tablet these days,
Yeah.
and on
So
your tablet, you can carry around hundreds of books and it doesn't get any
absolutely.
heavier.
I've had people read my book on their cell phone.
Yeah.
So, you know, so
Yeah. And is there an audio version coming out?
I'd like to get on that actually. I would love to do that. I had a friend who actually passed away from COVID 3 years ago. His name was Nick Cordero. He was a Broadway actor. And he was supposed to do the audio for my book. And it's really sad because I really wanted him to do it. And so I will plan on doing that. Audible's contacted me and they want me to kind of get going on picking a voice for the book. So I'll probably do that pretty soon.
How come I heard about Nick Cordero when he passed away?
He was all over the news.
Uh-huh.
All over the news. He was everywhere. He was like one of the first celebrities to get COVID and pass away.
Yeah, I did hear about it.
It was really sad.
Some time ago. That rang a bell when you said it. I know we've spoken before, but
yeah, really
that
sad.
is sad. That is sad. So this book, was it something that you pitched to Amazon? Was it something that you just wrote and then sent it to them? Was it finished when they saw it? When Book Baby saw it?
I had a very hard time getting it published. I think because they couldn't really take my book and say, yeah, this is a kid's book, because there's war in it. There's battle scenes, and they're like, oh, I don't think this is for kids. This is more for teens. And so like publishing companies had a really hard time trying to figure out how are we gonna make money from this. And I'm like, how are you gonna get it if you don't read it? They don't read your book. Nobody reads your book. So I thought to myself, like, if I'm gonna get this published, I'm gonna have to do it myself. I'm gonna have to spend my own money. And I saw an advertisement for Book Baby, and I'm like, I'm gonna just do it. And it was probably the best decision. I would love to have been published by a company, but they're bombarded by submissions every day. So, you know, I gave myself 6 months of trying to get published. Even now, I'm getting emails of publishing companies denying me still, because I went to so many.
They're finally getting through the list.
Oh yeah, and now they're just like contacting me saying, we don't think this is the right fit for us. And I'm like, I'm already published, bitch. I'm already published. So it's like, whatever.
Yeah. I know there's so many people putting out really good work that these guys would have an unbelievable time picking the best books.
They want to make money.
Yeah.
And if it's not self-help, or it's not like something involved with like the woke culture, they don't want to touch it. That's what's happening now.
So you got to get woke.
Yeah, like I feel like I was told by a couple, like, do you think you would be smart if maybe you made some of your characters this way or that way? And I'm like, no. I'm like, I don't know what it's like to be like that. So how am I going to write that perspective? Then I'm lying.
Yeah. Then it's not your best work anyway. You can't write something that's not yours.
If it's not true, I don't want to do it.
I'm researching every day. I'm researching the different things that I need to understand and learn before I put it into a chapter. And sometimes I have to rewrite a paragraph 3, 4, 5 times, because when I research it, I've still got the person's the words that I read from the other person, or the interview that I heard from in my head, and it doesn't go on the page. Like, it can't go on the page first. It's not ethical, right? But it also, it's not me. It would not sound like me if I did something that wasn't my words, it wasn't me or my thinking. I've got to attach my thinking process to it and my expression to it. And if I just try and plug it in, it doesn't work.
You know what? I didn't have a hard time picking like my story to have like a female hero. I love female heroes. And I could write the perspective of a girl because I have nieces, I have sisters, and like I've been surrounded by strong women my whole life. So like it was easy for me to write that.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know what it's like for somebody to be trans or like gay, or because I don't have that in my life. So like I can't write that perspective because it would be lying.
Yeah. I
was kind of annoyed by them trying to hint at me to change characters, like gender, and I'm like, they're insects. Like, I was getting kind of frustrated, and I'm just got to do this myself. If I want it to be true to what I need it to be and to get my message across, I need it to not be changed.
And what shits me about that is corporations taking advantage of a situation or a movement or something like that and monetizing it. They're the worst at it. It's like, come on, like, seriously.
I sometimes, I'm not into politics. I'm not into like that stuff. I kind of stay away from that stuff. And if I like somebody, I like them because of who they are. I don't care if they're this or that. It doesn't bother me. Nothing really bothers me.
That's it. I was listening to a podcast by one of my favorite authors, a guy called Ryan Holiday, and he was talking about how after Mark Manson, who's a friend of his, wrote a book that was titled something about not giving a fuck, or you started to see a plethora of books coming out with the word fuck on the title.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's like originality, these guys are going, well, this is interesting. Somebody's had the audacity or the balls or the guts to put the word fuck on a title. And what we're going to do now is we're going to put it on every second book that comes out.
Yeah, it's a little too much.
It's a bit silly. I think it's like that. He was like, be original. Just come up with your title, whatever it is, and you don't have to capitalize on the movement of swear words on the book title.
Publishers look at trends.
Yeah.
They make money. That's how they make money, is they follow trends.
Yeah.
So right now there's trends going on right now, and eventually it will change and there'll be something else.
That's it.
And like we live in North America, so we're bombarded by media. It's almost like we're drowning in American media constantly with the whole left and right, Trump, and
I know how you feel.
It's suffocating.
It's the same thing that happens here in Australia. The other than local news, the majority of our news comes from the United States. It's just ridiculous. You have to get,
But I swear to God, if there's another school shooting,
yeah,
I'm going to lose my mind
yeah,
because for some reason, these people are constantly talking about guns,
mm-hmm,
and it's not just guns. There's no help for mental health.
mm-hmm,
That's the biggest problem that I see in the States right now,
yep,
is that so many of these kids come from a horrible environment
mm,
and they don't get help,
yeah,
but they can go to Walmart and buy a gun.
yeah.
That's, you know,
I've
come
got
on.
my views about that as well, but I don't want to upset anybody because I'm not particularly about upsetting people's specific beliefs. Like if you uh, enjoy using guns or whatever you do with them, like that's fine. I've got no issue with that. You
I
know.
grew up with guns.
Yeah,
My dad took me hunting
yeah,
all the time. We grew up with guns, but my dad also like was in a war and used guns for different,
yeah.
and he always didn't like, I wanted to join the army when I
Mm.
was in high school.
And he was forget
He
about
would
it.
not let me go. He wouldn't
Mm,
let me go to cadets. He wouldn't let me do anything
mm.
because he didn't want me to have the problems that he had,
The trauma.
the trauma, right?
Yeah,
And I understand more now. I kind of resented him because I really wanted to go. And now I get it. I get it. We didn't know what PTS was when we were young.
no.
He would just throw the couch across the room or smash the TV, and then we just have a brand new TV. You know, like we didn't really understand PTS. And even and now I understand, and I look back and I think like, oh my God,
He
like
was
my dad
suffering.
has severe PTS,
Yeah,
you know, and it's, you know, he saw a lot of bad stuff.
yeah,
Germany, the Italians were there, the Germans were there,
yep.
you
And then
know,
they fought
the
against each
famine.
other.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
you know,
tough, man. That's tough. Those guys, they did it tough, and that's the thing. We need to learn from them, and I think it's great that we have, like I said, those role models that we can take lessons from, pass on to our kids, and then
yeah.
just accept what the cards that we've been dealt with, and then try and make good with them. Try and play a good hand with those cards, no
I
matter
think
how shitty they are.
I I I really value where we live. I think we're really lucky to live where we live,
Mm,
you know, and I know that people don't really look at things that way because they may not have that type of family history of having parents live through war, you know. Even my mom was like very young when Germany invaded. She remembers the bombings and the piles of bodies, you know. And so like there's a different, you know, aspect to like living here for us, knowing our parents' stories, you know. And I see a lot of kids that are young that just don't get it, and they don't know how lucky they are, you know.
and
It's
that's kind of a good thing too. But
yeah,
yeah,
in a way it is,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. Like I see my kids and they're completely oblivious of all those types of things. They've lived in Australia, in Melbourne, but it's an amazing place to grow up and live. And
Yeah,
we've never been exposed to any of that stuff. And my parents and their parent and my wife's parents came from, war-torn Greece,
yeah,
they were born in the
yeah,
40s. So they lived in poverty, and then they saw all this stuff that the kids nobody should ever see, right? And then they come
yeah,
here and they haven't got resources, and I'm struggling as a 16, 17, 18-year-old to relate to my dad or my mom, and
yeah,
they're raising me in the 1960s style, of Greece where they got raised. And it's like,
yeah,
guys, I mean, none of that shit applies to me, and I don't know how. I don't know how to tell you nicely. We live in Australia; it's a completely different world. We don't have the
yeah,
trauma that you guys have, and I really struggled to relate to them for a really long time
for sure. Me too. Me too.
until somebody said to me, they did the best they could do with the resources they had available to them,
Yeah,
and it's like, wow, like that's huge. But I let it affect me for too long because I wasn't smart enough or educated enough about that stage to understand what their troubles were, how they struggled to bridge the the gap between the culture that they left in the 60s and that I was being raised in the
Yeah, for
in
sure.
the 80s. There was not only was there a generation gap, there was a cultural gap that they were trying to bridge, and they had no idea how to bridge. So the only thing they taught us was what they knew, which was, the Greek church way, the family way, which I never regret. That's awesome. We never hung
Yeah.
out with other people because they couldn't relate to them. So we always hung out with 25 million Greek people.
Yeah.
And it was strange when I started to go out into the world at 16, 17, 18 and come across people that weren't Greek and how they did
Yeah.
things differently. And it was
I
like,
kind of rebelled against it. I didn't want Greek friends. I
yeah,
didn't want to go to church anymore. I didn't want that lifestyle. I was kind of like, I don't want to go to church anymore. I want to hang out with like people who are into like Metallica and Guns N' Roses. Like,
yes.
that's what I wanted. And then once like 91 hit and Nirvana got big and grunge, the whole grunge thing, I was so anti-Greek, man. I was coloring my hair blue and so like I really rebelled against it from my younger age. But as I got older in my 20s, then we started going to the Greek festivals again. And I started kind of being like, I started understanding my dad a bit. Like, honestly, I must have been the only 8-year-old that I knew was busting out bullets out of rabbits, because we went hunting.
Yep.
None of my friends were gutting rabbits at 8 years old, I guarantee you. I was the only one out of my friends that know that smell, that gutting smell.
Yeah, man, that would be unique for sure.
And my parents never let us like sleep over at anybody's house. I was never allowed to sleep over at anybody's house. I wasn't allowed. And really, I have 2 older sisters, and they weren't allowed out until they were 21. I was going out till 4 or 5 in the morning in high school because my parents were exhausted. I was going to Lollapalooza. I was going to, raves. They were tired. I just lucked out. I was so lucky.
And the girls did get treated differently, even in our family.
Yeah.
Not in my family because it was 2 boys, but in the extended family that had girls, the girls really did it tough, especially the oldest born.
Oh yeah. Very different.
Overprotective, not trusting. They used to make to feel guilty over just being normal human beings, liking boys or putting a poster on their wall or all sorts of things. They struggled so much to break the old 1960s mentality. And what shit me the most, and I still have a bit of a, I still raise it every once in a while, is that my parents in their teenage years or early 20s left Greece and everyone behind, came to Australia with nothing, nobody to tell them what to do, how to do it, where to sleep, who to sleep with. They got
true.
They got no one looking over their shoulder, and then they did the exact opposite to us. They just went next level.
So true. Like, so like at that time, you either went to Australia or you went to Canada.
Yes.
And by the time my dad was ready to leave, Australia had closed their border. So my dad ended up going to Canada. And I remember my dad saying one of the first things he did was he went to the farmer's market because he wanted to try all the food that he'd never seen before. So he ate a banana for the first time. He had like all these melons for the first time.
Yeah.
And he was in heaven. He was like food heaven. He's like, I didn't eat lamb or goat for like years. I just ate steak and chicken. It was like a dream come true.
Something different.
I was like, oh, it's so funny to listen to his stories.
But
he loved it here.
I'm going to tell you a story of my dad. This is so far off the podcast topic, but doesn't matter because I think people will appreciate our stories. So my dad arrives in Australia as a young kid in his 20s, and his mates say to him, let's go hunting. So Melbourne is a very small city back then. Maybe there's maybe there's a couple of million people in the entire city, and there's tram services. So the trams run throughout the Melbourne central business district and into the outer suburbs. In some lines run into the outer suburbs.
Yeah.
So he gets on the tram with a rifle, and he just gets in and walks on the tram and sits down, goes to buy a ticket from the conductor. And then, sure enough, a couple of stops down the road, two police officers enter the tram and they approach him and they ask him in English, what are you doing? Where are you going? But he doesn't speak English. So they're pointing at the gun. And he's trying to explain to them what he's doing, where he's going with the gun, right? So what he does, he sticks his fingers on the top of his head to imitate a rabbit, and he starts waving his fingers to say, I'm going rabbit hunting.
That's awesome.
They grab him off the tram and they throw him in the back of the police car and they take him down to the local station to interrogate him. But they're getting nowhere because they can't communicate with him because he speaks Greek only, you know? So they get this other Greek cop to come in and do the translation. And he reckons the Greek cop ripped shit through him. You can't, what do you think you are in the village? You can't just take a gun onto a tram and the rest of it. And he was just dumbfounded and devastated. Anyhow, because now they had taken him to a police station somewhere where he didn't know where he was, he couldn't get home. He didn't know how to get home. So he made the coppers drop him off back to his house. And that's how he got away with it. And he never ended up going hunting with the guys that day. And he has a story to tell. So that's what they were dealing with, you know. So I just I relate to a lot of the stuff that you're saying and the difficulties that they went through. And that's why what we spoke about earlier, you know, about your wife, refugees and all that kind of stuff. They come to another country, they come for a better life, they try different things. They don't get it right all the time, but man, some of them have been through hard times. And I think compassion is such a cool tool to use to sort of help people just get through, you know, the tough stages and settle into something completely different, man, that they're not experienced with or they're not used to, you know.
You know, my dad came here and did a lot of different jobs. My mom came here and did different jobs, and they didn't have the education. They learned these jobs and made it work. You know, and I don't know, it's funny. Like, my dad was a very, very, very intelligent man. He didn't have the education to prove it, but you can give my dad any math equation and he got it like that. He just had that intelligence naturally. And it almost makes you wonder what would have happened with him if he did go to university and he didn't grow up in the war and he wasn't a soldier, you know, because he was my dad could like build a car with his hands.
Yeah.
My dad roofed the house himself. My dad fixed everything himself. Yeah. He would never pay somebody to fix something, ever. You know, he did his oil changes himself. He did everything himself, you know, and he never ate at restaurants. If him and my mom didn't cook, he wouldn't eat it. He lived here for so many years and he never had a Big Mac. Like, he's just so strict in his ways, you know?
And it's a great thing to emulate to a point because you can see how healthy he was for such a long time, right? He had longevity because of that.
Amazing.
Because they ate clean, they ate home that was cooked, food that was cooked at home. It was always probably fresh and good ingredients. And they never outsourced their nutrition to other corporations who don't have your best interests at heart. They just want to sell you a Big Mac and convenience, you know?
Cucumbers, tomatoes were always growing in the backyard.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the way that they lived, right?
Yeah. And how much time they seem to have time to do everything, these people. And there was never was not enough time to do the backyard. My parents' entire backyard is a garden. Now that we're not living at home, they just converted it all into a veggie patch, and they're in there every day, every single day, all the year, every season. We're always getting fresh fruit and vegetables given to us so we can take home and eat.
It's a
And
beautiful thing.
it is. It's a great thing to see and try to emulate, although I don't succeed because it's too
I'm not as good as my dad either.
no,
He had a gift. It was
too
a
time
gift.
consuming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Theo, man, it's been really awesome getting to chat to you
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
learning about your story and sharing the things that we have in common. I really appreciate it.
Hmm.
I love the fact that you got here and you're doing what you're doing, and that you've overcome what you've overcome. You've written an amazing book. You got a kid on the way, man. I'll look
Yeah.
forward to following your journey and making sure that
Beautiful.
you're releasing awesome things and doing great stuff. And it's great to connect with you, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate this. This has been great. I love learning about you too. And I love having what we have in common. And yeah, it's great to actually talk about it and actually like talk about something that like somebody else has experienced. Cause I think it's easier to talk about anything related to stroke and surgery, with somebody who knows what you've gone through, you know.
Yeah. And that's why I put it out there on Instagram a little while ago, why I said, are you somebody that's had a stroke? If you have, please reach out because I'd love to interview you. Just thinking that nobody would respond. I didn't really think that I would get a lot of responses, but I
Mhm.
got 30 or something responses, which is
That's
more than I
amazing.
more than I expected. So I became overwhelmed, but
Yeah.
I'm all good. I'm good with it now. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's what I'm hoping it's going to do. Is I'm hoping that it's going to allow people to have the courage to reach out to, if not me, somebody else and say, I've
Yeah.
had a stroke and can we talk about it because I know that you might have had one or whatever. I think that's what the purpose is. That's why I did it, because I needed that and I wasn't finding them in my backyard, in my next door. So I did that. And the world's pretty small now. We can bridge
Yeah.
massive spans of ocean and land just with Zoom, so
Yeah.
reach out. There's plenty of people doing podcasts these days that are talking about these types of things, and they're always looking for guests. So if you reach out to
Yeah.
them, they're going to say yes.
Yeah.
They're going to want to hear your story because every story is unique. It's worth telling, and it does something for you when you tell it. Like, it feels good when you tell your own story and somebody listens, and then you receive an email and somebody says, "Shit, thanks so much for sharing your story." It made me feel like I'm not
Yeah.
alone or whatever.
100%.
You know,
100%.
that's what it's about
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
Well, be well. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks again for joining us on today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the chat with me and Theo about all things stroke. And then you got a little bit of an insight as to what it's like to be a first generation Australian, and in his case, a first generation Canadian from a Greek heritage. I It's unbelievable how much people that are in my situation and in Theo's situation have in common about their upbringing and all the things that they have learnt from their parents. And I find that that's a very common theme. A lot of those themes are very common in discussions that I have with people from all backgrounds that have parents who emigrated from their home country to a new country for a better life. Now, to learn more about my guests, including links and to download a full transcript of the entire interview, you can go to recoveryafterstroke.com/episodes. If you would like to support this podcast, the best way to do it is to leave a 5-star review and a few words about what the show means to you on iTunes and Spotify. If you are watching on YouTube, comment below the video, like this episode, and to get notifications of future episodes, subscribe to the show on the platform of your choice. Sharing the show with family and friends on social media will make it possible for people who may need this type of content to find it easier. And that may make a massive difference to someone that's on the road to recovery after their own experience with stroke. So if you would do that, that would be really amazing and fantastic. Thanks again for being here and listening. I really appreciate you, and I am looking forward to being with you on the next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.